Hey everybody, I'm Brooklyn here with Cassandra Dorsaint from Faith Celebration Church here in Lakeland, Florida. We both are youth pastors in Lakeland, and during the last few months that have felt like a million years, we've had some intersections where we thought, wow, it would be really good to have a conversation about things youth pastors can do to help students value race or to help them during race conversations. So she's here with us today. Cass, we're so glad you're here. I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pastor Brooklyn, for letting me be here. I love this. I love this. Thank you for having me on. So yes, my name is Cassandra Dorsaint. My students call me Miss Cass, and I'm over the youth ministry at Faith Celebration Church. We have a youth group there called Ignite Youth. And so we are passionate. We preach the word of God, and we preach meat. Man, our students love the word. They love to eat. Man, they love to eat. And so we're there speaking the word, going through different series and having a ton of fun while doing it. And so I love pouring into the students and raising up this next generation.
Yes, awesome. And I love that we get to do this together in Lakeland. Lakeland's a special place. Our youth ministry is Somos Youth Ministry. Somos is a Spanish word that means we are. And we are church. We are church together. And we spend a lot of time focusing on how it looks to be church outside of the four walls of a church. We want to add value and support the value of every person possible. And so we're both from different contexts, but with same purposes to help students grow in their relationships with God, help them grow in their relationships with others, for them to find out what they're good at, what their purposes are, and ultimately to become the kind of people who can change the world. So that's what we're here. We're going to have a conversation, and I'm so glad that you joined us today.
Thank you, Pastor Brooklyn, for having me on here. I love the fact that we literally met and got started on just dialoguing because of youth, which is great. We were literally I was talking with another lady who was over youth. And you're like, wait, are you guys talking about youth students? And so that just shows a lot of your heart and mine of just how committed we are for youth ministry. So
Cassandra Dorsaint, everybody. She is not going to say it, but she's doing an incredible job in youth ministry. The work that she does is brilliant. When she tells me about some of the things that she does, I'm always just in awe, like, teach me more. So Cass and I were talking. This summer has been long, to say the least. And we've had a lot of intersections. Some of those have been at faith rallies. Some of those have been at her church. I went to an incredible prayer gathering that her church had and continued to attend online. And then seeing her youth ministry kind of reopen and meet again has been really awesome. Our heart today is to talk about something that was kind of ignited even more so, even though the subject of race has been going on for a really long time. We know that this summer, in the situation that happened with George Floyd, we found a catalyst for the conversation around race again. It's just kind of there, and it's necessary for us to talk about. So I wanted to talk with Cass because she had some incredible thoughts and ideas. We have met and talked about this topic before, and so I just wanted to have a conversation with her so that you all could benefit as much as I have, and we could all benefit from each other. So we're going to talk about 4 things that every youth pastor can do to help students value race. Now, this isn't an all-inclusive list. We haven't written a book and cited our sources. However, we have created a little outline that we thought would be helpful. And if there's something you'd like to add to it, or you have other ideas, or something you want to just talk to us about, feel free to reach out. We'll have a PDF document that we can share together with this video so you can see the outline, but also it will have our contact info in there. So if you want to reach out to either one of us, you can do that as well. So, okay, let's just have this conversation. I'm excited about it. So 4 things youth pastors can do to help students value race. Cass, the first thing we came up with was practicing being aware. Well, how do we do that? The first idea we had was to help students acknowledge and love the skin that they are created in, emphasis on the word created. So Cass, tell me a little bit about that. How are we going to help students acknowledge and love the skin that they're created in?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to start with always because, we see color. And I think the biggest thing that even you want to even share with these students now is to take out of their vocabulary, take it out of their mind of this ongoing word and concept of being colorblind. That I don't see color. Oh, like I didn't even know that there was anything going on that I don't see color. No, like Brooklyn, I'm black.
Beautiful.
And you want to see that black is beautiful. You want to see the different colors that God has created. I love how you used you had emphasis on the word created, because God really created the skin that I was in. He looked at me, he saw, and he's like, man, this woman of God would be best in this skin. This woman of God would be best in this color. And so we want to make sure that we're aware of the skin that we're in and the skin that others are in, but we're not using that as a basis of how to treat them, but on how to embrace them, really. And so really just like saying that you're beautiful. I love your skin. I love how beautiful you are, and that you're a black woman and all of that. That's how we do that. We do that unafraid, and we do that just by just sharing love through that way.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think you kind of spoke to the second idea that we had already, which was to not only should we help students acknowledge and love the skin that they were created in, but we should also help students acknowledge and love the skin that others were created in. The skin that we're born in, the skin that we are created to be in. I love this language. Language is so important to me. I feel like language has weight and meaning and depth. And if we as youth pastors can shift our language from this is what you're born with to this is what you were created to be a part of, and just adding so much more value to that so that students can understand that they're not just a person in a culture, they're a person with a purpose in a culture. And sometimes we forget that in some of the struggles and some of the conversations that we're having. So those are two things you can do to practice being aware: acknowledging and loving, helping students acknowledge and love the skin they were created in, and helping them acknowledge and love the skin that others were created in. I know that, I mean, it's very obvious that I am a white woman. My skin, however, is very olive toned. When I travel in Europe or in other places that aren't in the US, I get mistaken all the time for being Middle Eastern, for being Turkish, for being German. I mean, there's all sorts of things that I could be. However, it's getting to know someone where you realize their created value. It's getting to know them, that they're in the skin that they have is not only a part of their story, but it's a part of their purpose. And just finding out like my own heritage and helping kids be curious about their own heritage. So that as you do that as a youth pastor, the more curious you are, the more permission you give for them to be curious about each other. Not in weird, stereotypical, judgmental ways, but to be curious about their story and about why it might be that we're different, it might be that we know each other. That's another part of this, is knowing our created value will help us see the culmination of that value. So when Cass and I come together, we're a powerhouse team because we have two different kinds of stories combining to make an even greater one. So these are some cool things that we can do. There are a couple other things that you can do to practice being aware. What's the third one, Cass?
The third one is help students become aware of how the experience of their skin is different from the experience of others, and how it is the same. And I love that. And some of the things that you've already said is so powerful, that the skin that you're in is also connected to the purpose, your purpose as well. Man, that is powerful. That is so, so powerful, that when we're embracing the color that we're in, we're also able to embrace it even more and attach it to what we're supposed to even do. And so you're right, there's two people here, two different races that bring so much value to this conversation. And so even with this third point of how we have different experiences because of the skin that we're in, I think that the worst thing that we could do is assume that someone has the same experience that we have, and that even if someone experiences is worse or someone experiences better, like, you never know. And I think that that's a great conversation that you can bring to the table of, like, where are you from? Like, what has your experience been because of you've been where you're from? Or, not every Black person has been through a bad experience. you know, but, you know, so their world is different. Their world is different, how people perceive them, how they're being perceived, or how they're, what the lens that they're living through as well. And so that's just a great, just a great point to even know, to even like kind of engage with as well. I know that we've talked about this before, but our students, whenever you see students in like a high school or a middle school, I think a great thing to recognize and to understand is that you guys may go home to different worlds.
Yeah.
Right? Like some people may go home and they have like grilled cheese and tomato soup. Other people, they go home. When I grew up, I went I went back home and there was rice and chicken on the stove almost every time I went home, because my parents are from Haiti. I'm Haitian. So, I mean, like, we have completely different experiences. My car rides to school were much different than many other people's car rides to school as well. You know, conversations with my mom and everything like that were so different. And so I think that the biggest thing that we could do to embrace one another is step out of fear if we're in fear, and choose to ask questions about each other's experiences as well.
That's amazing. I love that. I love the idea of being curious about each other's experience when you go home. It's just such an interesting conversation. I don't know how you guessed that I ate grilled cheese, but that's exactly what we ate. And I didn't like the tomato soup at the time, so it was just grilled cheese. But yeah, I mean, we don't always know what someone's experience is when they go home, and people might not guess that my experience when I went home, a few different seasons in my life were when we were without a home. We didn't live in a house. We lived on couches, and we didn't have a stable place. And I think it might be surprising to people because they've already kind of stereotypically put me in a place of affluence or, you know, a certain type of person. And so it's always important to wonder, what is your life like? Yeah. And what can your life teach me? I think hearing other people's experiences always strengthens me and gives me a new perspective, and helps me grow my empathy. So if we can help students grow in empathy by leading conversations that help us understand everyone's experiences, I think we'll be really, really helping them do something valuable that will not only benefit their own personal abilities, but it will benefit everyone around them. So yeah, practice being aware. I think we can't say it enough. Being aware and being curious are very important things to say that you value the race conversation and that you value the skin people are created in. It's so good. So the other thing that you can do, thing two, would be to practice affirmation. I can't say this one enough. I'm an affirmation monster. I love affirmation. It is my love language. I'm not the best at giving it, but I definitely gobble it up. So I know that not every kid is good with receiving affirmation, but we have some specific ideas for how affirmation might work when we're talking about race. So the first thing we want to talk about is helping middle schoolers see, because they're younger, the value that they add in a conversation that could be new to them. New conversations can be really scary. Even for me as an adult, we were just talking before we recorded, how should I say this? What do I do? And for middle schoolers who haven't had the experience of conversations that can be a little difficult to have, they might feel like they have nothing to add. So we want to encourage them to add things to conversations, to practice the values that are growing in their heart because of their relationship with Christ. It's so important to affirm them that they can do it. What do you think, Cass?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing, you know, for students is for them to understand their voice matters. Their voice absolutely matters. The Bible is full of young people, you know, who spread the gospel, you know, and were used as well in the gospels. And so, you know, for students and for youth to understand that, no, my voice matters. My affirmation matters. For me to ask a student of color, a person of color, a Black student, a Hispanic student, anything like that, to be like, how was your summer? How was it? You know, what is it like? You know, what was it like? What did you do? Did anything on the news affect you? I know there's a lot of things going on in the news. And these are just simple ways and conversation starters that you can ask and use instead of assuming, you know, and be like, man, you know, I heard your summer was was rough because of all the Blacks on news. Like, no, 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 no. But, you know, these are ways of wisdom that we can ask and have them, give them a way to respond as well, and be like, you know, man, yeah, there was a lot of stuff on the news. Thank you for asking. Thank you for caring. And so absolutely affirming people, even what you said when you first started the conversation today, was just like, no, it's beautiful. Your skin color is amazing. It's beautiful. And that's what we want to do for others as well.
Yeah, that's good. So we want to affirm middle schoolers. And yeah, like Cass was saying, there are times when we want to say, no, 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 let's not have the conversation this way. And that's what we're there for, honestly, to be a guide and to help them to avoid, you know, some of the things that we have maybe done and we didn't want to do, or just to avoid some things, some best practices that we know that we can kind of pass on to them. But it's so cool to affirm when you see a middle schooler having a conversation and adding something to it and doing that brave work of bringing themselves to a relationship. That's always the time to cheer. And it goes the same with high school students. So that's the second way that you can practice affirmation, is to look at your high school students and help them see their leadership potential in a conversation that's happening around them. At this point, some of our 17, 18-year-olds might have checked out. They might just be tired and over it, you know, like, and they just may not want to engage. Who doesn't want to just sit back sometimes and not engage? I think all of us have felt that way. So think about the high schoolers in your ministry or in your group and wonder about the leadership that they have, and affirm that leadership in conversations. Encourage them to talk, encourage them to add things, even when it feels like they've been kind of leading the way for a little while. Cass, do you have some ideas about how we can do that?
Yeah, I think when sometimes we think as students that, you know, we don't have to engage the conversation, kind of like you were just saying. But I think, you know, especially for I know in our youth group we have a majority, if not all, of our students are students of color. They're Black, you know, some Hispanic, that kind of thing. And so, you know, I think that even if they don't want to talk, that we want to be able to provide them with tools that if questions are asked. And I think that with even people with students of color, I think that there's a knowledge that we want them to have, that even if, like, you know, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to share about this, I don't want to talk about this, people may look to you for an answer. And whether that's right or wrong, we want to make sure that you are equipped to lead, or at least to have something to say, or to point them to a place or to someone who can give to the conversation as well. So I think either way, I think either students of color, but then also those who are not, you know, to kind of like engage in conversation and just know that you can lead it. And that's what this conversation is all about, is that giving you tools to know that you can engage in a conversation as well, and even start one if you're brave enough.
That's really good. That's really good. So Cass and I have different kinds of youth groups. Like she was saying, her youth group is predominantly students of color. Our youth group is a mix. We have all sorts of different backgrounds, and we have kids that have been in diverse settings before and kids that haven't been. For example, my daughter, she goes to a school where most of the students are students of color and she is not. And so for her, it doesn't feel like a conversation that she really needs to have, because she feels super free to be herself and to value others. But when she gets out of that environment, that's when she notices the need for it. So we just want to make sure that we're affirming their observations, helping them understand and unpack some of the questions they have, and telling them, hey, we don't have all the answers, but we're here to have conversations anytime you need to have them. Which brings us to another way that you can practice affirmation. That's helping youth see their story and their opinions, how they matter. It's just helping them see that they matter, even if the story that they have and the opinions that they have, even if those things don't quite match up with their family members or their friends. Keep in mind that some kids are going home to a family who might be having vitriolic conversations, or things are just not, there's a lot of tension there. And our job isn't to say whether parents are right or wrong, but our job is to support a student who has questions about their opinions and if they matter. So we can always say, I believe you. I believe that this matters to you. I don't really understand. I don't know what might be best, but I believe you and I hear you and I see you. And I think for me, expressing that to the students in our ministry has been probably one of the best things we could do, not giving them answers, but giving them a person who can value what they have to say and remind them that it matters that it's spoken somewhere.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's really good. And I think stories are huge. Stories are a huge part of who we are. You just sharing your story of what happened in your house last night or this morning, or what's going to happen this weekend just shares a lot about you. And so when people are able, I think stories, when people are able to share their stories and when students are able to share their stories, that brings a level of comfort. It just shows like, this is who I am. At the end of the day, this is who I am. This is how my parents are. This is how my parents talk. This is how we talk at home. And it brings that level of comfort because they're not wrong when they're sharing their own story.
Right.
It's literally your story and your experience. And so as when you're sharing it like that, I think that's a moment where people who are sharing can be comfortable in sharing. And that's another entry point where people can also engage in listening as well. So it's a great tactic.
Yeah, definitely. I loved what you just said, that you aren't wrong when you're sharing your story. We're all wrong lately. We've been wrong about everything for the last 6 months. It feels like every time we think, oh, this will be the best thing to do, we turn around and realize this might not be the best thing to do. So I think it's always been the case where we're not always sure what's absolutely and positively true. But now in the season we're in with viruses and different political things happening, we're in an election year. This is a pretty crazy time, and kids might not know if there's anything that's stable. But we can remind them, your story is stable. Everything about you, I want to know. Like, tell me more. And that kind of leads us to the third thing that we think that youth pastors can do to help students value race, and that is to practice community. As Cass was talking about affirmation and reminding kids who they are and giving them a chance to tell their story, I'm like, yeah, that's what small groups are. That's what youth group is. That's what all these things that we spend so much time preparing for and doing. That's what we're doing. We're creating a place of community. But we may want to think about doing it a little bit differently when it comes to helping students value race. So we have a few ideas for you, and I can't wait to hear what you think about them. If you have some ideas for how you can do any of these things, please let us know. Drop them in the comments wherever we share this so that we can all learn and grow together. So first thing, to practice community, to help students as they're valuing race, first thing is do something different. Anytime you do something different, it helps kind of unravel some of the stubborn, inflexible parts of us. And if we lead the way, it will give people permission to do different things too. So Cass, you had a really cool idea about doing something different. I think you called it Focus Night. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So we do this thing called Focus Night at Ignite Youth once a month. And so Focus Night could literally be anything. And so we just want the students to come out together and just have fun. And so that could be a moment where we bring the students around to have conversation about anything that they want to know. So we can pick something out of a bowl, out of a container, and be like, okay, what student brought up this topic this time? We talk about that. Or it could be like getting to know your youth leaders better. Or this last Focus Night that we literally just had last week, we took all the students out to the Cobb. And so we just play games there. We do a lot of fun stuff there. And we just let the students be themselves. This one, they did not want to leave, okay? They did not want to leave. They said, Miss Cass, please let us stay for another hour. Let us stay. Let us walk around. And that's what it's all about. You want to be able to not just grow in the word together, but fellowship together. Fellowship is such a huge part when you're in the community of the body of Christ. Do you know the people that you're also growing spiritually with? And so that's what we want to do as well.
Yes, and I know we talked about before COVID, quarantine, social distancing, mask wearing, all of that happened. Before that, we talked about us joining your youth group on occasion, yours joining ours, us getting together. That's also something different you can do. You don't always have to use your church as the meeting place. You can go somewhere else, have a different environment, interact with a different group of people, and learn different things. So I love the idea of Focus Night. That you mentioned a word that brings us to our second way that you can practice community, and that's simply to do something fun. If you want to have conversations about race and help teens value conversations about race, then you've got to give them a little bit of opportunity to have fun together and trust each other. When I have fun, I trust people. It's probably not the best way to test a trust level in a human being. But if we're having a great time, I tend to trust you more. I tend to feel like, oh, you're someone I can relate to, or I can trust, or maybe tell my story to. Cass has something that they do called Spicy Uno, which I want her to tell you about. Um, our fun things have been real wild. I mean, we had an incredible bowling ball. It's kind of like a prom, but we just, dressed up like bowlers and bowled with objects that we found laying around. We're going to get ready to have a putt-putt course that's made out of all the junk that we find around Lakeland. So we're going to make a putt-putt course in our parking lot so we can still social distance and get together and have something fun. Just random things you can do, drive-bys. There's all sorts of new creative things that youth pastors are doing because of the situation we're in. So tell us about Spicy Uno, though, because I love Uno and I love playing games. And you told me one time and I forgot already. So I need to hear how you play this.
No, literally, like Spicy Uno, like it literally is Uno upside down. Like it is like our favorite game as a youth group. It is so much fun. And depending on the card that you put down, it has all of these different rules. So just like a couple, whenever you put down like the number 0, then you get to switch hands with anybody around you. If you put down the number 7, then everyone has to stay silent. And if someone speaks, if someone laughs, like they have to draw a card, all of this, like you can ask for help in the game and someone can give you a card, but they can't show you who it is. And so like, this is like literally a game that we play in the youth group where you can't get offended because your best friend in the youth group could not be your best friend by the end of Spicy Uno.
I want to play Spicy Uno. I want to so badly.
So fun. Like every youth leader that was like, all like, collected becomes like the biggest trash talker. And it's just like, hey.
Like somebody cares about this. We had no idea.
So it's so much fun. Like there's like when you put down the number 6, everybody has to slap the deck. The last person to slap the deck has to pick up a card. And so it is just a ton of fun. We love to play it all the time.
Do you have your new rules for Spicy Uno? Do you have those like written down anywhere?
Honestly, it was just a game passed down. We learned it in college. And so it was just a game passed down. So honestly, we just remembered it, memorized like all the rules. And, to this day, someone could have just made up a rule for all we know.
I love it. Well, I know people are going to ask, I want the rules for Spicy Uno. So you should make a little list. Like here, you can start with, and just start making them up because that's how you end up doing it well.
Yes.
Start making up rules to benefit yourself, and then everyone's an enemy. And that sounds really fun. I love the one that you said about everyone having to be quiet and not say anything. That's hilarious. And if you laugh, you gain a card.
Yes.
I would be dead. I'm done. I'll never win. And that would be fun to not win, knowing that that was why. So yeah. So do something different, do something fun, do something connective. This is a little bit different than fun and different just because this would have sort of a focus on maybe asking some questions or watching a movie that might have meaning that you could talk about. I know there are a lot of movie watching things happening right now. We've all been on Netflix, we've all been on Hulu, we're all waiting for The Mandalorian to come out again. We don't know when movies are gonna happen ever again, but there's a bunch of old stuff out there that you can watch. So do something connective like a movie night where there's a theme presented by people who don't know you so that you can talk about the theme with the people that do know you. And it seems like a simple idea, and something that you might just use as fellowship where you're having pizza and a movie. But if you just take one more little step toward being intentional, you could turn this into a really communal time. Just by saying, okay, what are some of the themes in this movie? My husband loves movies and faith and film and how they intersect. We just finished a series called At the Movies, and I learned so much every year just watching a movie and then thinking about it, thinking about how it intersects with our faith, and then talking to people about what they thought too. Mm-hmm. So that's something you can do. And finally, do something bridge building. We already mentioned storytelling, but Cass, I would love for you to share some of the bridge building things that you have kind of in mind. Maybe you haven't done them yet, or maybe there's something you've already done where you've kind of created a bridge for your youth ministry to create community.
Yeah. I know this is an interesting time where, we're trying to like continue to build community in the midst of like quarantining and things like that. So we're still trying to figure out some ways. I know that recently our youth group has gone on live on Wednesday nights, which is amazing. The students are really liking it. And it just gives an opportunity for you to invite people to church and invite students to hear the word of God, where even if they can't come out the house just yet. And so I think that's a good idea in itself. And so that not many people have seen like a Black female pastor preach, or a person of color preach, or a woman, or anything like that. So just having students engage in that way could be a way in this time where we can build community as well. So things like Zoom groups like this, what we're doing as well, is an awesome way to build community. So I would say for that.
Yeah, just stay intentional when you're practicing community. Think about who you can get in front of your students that doesn't look like you, that isn't like you at all. Something we've kind of shifted to because of our inability to meet in person right now is we are doing our 1-minute messages, which is just like a little short script of our overall message we would have done. And instead of me as the youth pastor delivering that 1 minute, we have been trying to get other voices to deliver that minute so that people can not only feel like a connection to a different kind of person, but also they can imagine themselves being that person. I grew up never seeing a female preaching ever. And so the day I did, it was like I had this whole new capacity for imagining that for myself. Wow, oh, wait, so women can do that? I never saw it, so I never imagined it. So the more we bring in front of our students, the more intentionality that we have, the more opportunity they have to see something of value and to be able to add that to their own self. So for the kids in Cass's youth group, they see a beautiful, strong, Black woman pastor. And every single girl in that group is like, yep, we can do that. And every single guy in that group is like, yep, they can do that. So it doesn't just benefit one side, it benefits everyone. And so just doing that, like kind of changing up who's communicating for us has been one thing. Another thing is just getting involved in the schools and making sure that we're doing storytelling and community service and a lot of stuff in places where you see different backgrounds, you see different stories, you see different types of families, which I want to just pause there too. When we think about, there's my dog, when we think about community, not every person comes from a stereotypical family,
Right.
Like we have lots of families. We have students who they have kind of gone from family to family to family to family, and they've grown used to it, but there's some stuff there. You have people who are in a solid family who the marriage is the first marriage, and everything seems great, but maybe underneath things aren't so great. You just never really know what someone's going through. So when we talk about community, I like to think about it as getting to know someone, not only their strengths and the qualities that we love, but also the areas they have to grow in, the areas that they might struggle with, the things about their lives that aren't as easy, and embracing that with them and helping them figure out how to live a life that's transformed. So practice these things, being aware, practice affirmation, practice community, and finally, this is a hard one, practice humility.
Yeah.
There are 4 things that we think you can do to practice humility as a youth pastor, as you're leading students through the times that we're living in. And Cass, I would love for you to share those 4 things with us, and I'll just jump in as needed.
Yeah, I think this is great. I think even as you went over the last 3, our first thing to do to practice humility is to listen. I think in order for people to listen, I think that you have to first build a safe environment for those students to even share their story. So before listening and before even asking questions, do students feel safe to share with you their stories, where they're from as well? And so I think some of the, even what we said before, practicing community, those are great ways where students can then feel safe. They're having fun. They're able to connect with the students, with other students who are outside of their race, and be able to build community. And within that community, now we're able to really talk. And so I think when you're practicing humility and listening, that is amazing. And I think that, even, we should probably provide even some questions for some students to just ask. And I think that, again, when people begin to share more about themselves, it might make them feel a little bit more comfortable. So just even questions of like, how was this summer for you? Or what are you going to eat tonight for dinner?
Yeah.
Like that could just be a fun one. Just what are you going to eat tonight for dinner? Or, you know, like, what's your favorite movie? Just things like that. You know, what are y'all interested in? Or like, what do you talk about with your mom? Like, are you really close with your mom? You know, just things like that, you know, begin to like, you know, break down the barriers and the walls, and, you know, begin to ask people like, you know, where they're coming from, and being able to provide a space to listen as well, a safe space too.
Yeah, so listening, learning from each other. There should never be in a day in a youth pastor's life that we aren't learning. And as we're learning, that will become very, very, very obvious to the people we lead that, wow, she or he is a learner. They're learning. They're like on a learning train. There's just nothing stopping them. They just can't stop learning. I think that's such a great, you know, acknowledgement when someone says, wow, you really love to learn. Yeah, because there's so many voices of value out there. God made everybody, and everybody has something to teach us about our God and the character of God. The spiritual part of us is a carrier of God's image, and I just love that. So listen and learn, and then, you know, educate yourself. This is tough because we might feel poked. We might feel like maybe we're tired, or tired of feeling like maybe we've done something wrong. I speak that as a white person who has heard, you know, friends say, I'm tired of feeling like I've done something wrong. Well, it might be a good time to educate yourself on the things that you can do right. I feel like I can say that to my friends because if we just focus on how we feel about something instead of educating ourselves, we'll miss an opportunity to learn and to listen. So, in your responses to your friends, in the way that you're speaking as a pastor, you're going to help students by setting an example. It's kind of a common sense thing, but the more you educate yourself and then advocate for others whose maybe their voices haven't been amplified, their voices have been stifled, this is a time for you to notice, okay, what are my feelings telling me? Are they telling me to protect, or are they telling me to learn? I think our ability to learn and our desire to learn stems from a spirit to love others. And I feel like that's what God wants us to do. Jesus wants us to love each other. John 15, 11 through 15, it's one of my favorite passages of scripture ever, where Jesus says, like, this is the secret. I'm going to give you the tea. Like, this is it. Like, I know everything that God knows, and God trusted me with it, and I am going to trust you with it. You're my friends. I'm going to call you friends. I'm going to tell you everything. And all you have to do is live how I do. And the way you do that is by laying your life down for each other and loving each other. That's just like a powerful, powerful thing to hear from Jesus. So I'm sharing that, knowing that I'm not always the best at educating myself. I'm not always the best at being an advocate for people, but I really want to be. And so conversations like these you can have with the people around you, and you can set an example for the students in your ministry. So we have listen, learn, educate, advocate, and the last one, Cass, will you share that one with us?
Empathize. Yes, last one's empathize. It says with parents or with friends as well. And I think that just shows like a big part within listening. It's not, you know, there's probably definitely some tips that we can share on what's the difference between, you know, sympathizing and empathizing, and being like, you know, I've been there too. Someone's trying to share their story. You're like, oh, I had a situation like that too. You're like, no, this is not this. You know, that kind of thing too. So, you know, we could probably provide some tips for students and for youth pastors as well when it comes to that. But I think what you said earlier, like way earlier in the beginning of the conversation, was, what can your life teach me? Man, if that's not a statement of humility, I'm like, Pastor Brooklyn, like hats off to you. Like, wow. What can your life teach me? That just like breaks down the barriers of like what people could think of me in a stereotype as being a Black woman, what I could think of you being a white woman, you know, and really beginning to set an environment to listen in that safe environment again, and to empathize with someone, be like, man, like, how was that for you? These are questions of empathy. How was that for you? Like, man, could you share a little bit more with me about how you felt in that situation? Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. Those are questions of empathy that we can even ask as youth pastors to students in our youth group who could be people of color, and then other students who are not students of color, to be like, what is it like for you guys to be in this situation as well? You know, too. So I think that those are some great pointers.
Yeah, it's so good. And I kind of breezed really quickly through the education and advocacy part of this humility conversation. But I did want to ask you before we end our conversation, it will continue, but before we end the Zoom call, um, how do you advocate for someone in your youth ministry whose voice is not being heard? When you see an injustice, when you see something happening in the world around you, or maybe something that happens in the news cycle incites some passion or even anger in the students in your group. I've seen this happen in my group. We have all sorts of backgrounds represented, and sometimes the news can be very, very aggravating, and the students can want to do something. And we, as youth pastors, we want to help them, but sometimes we don't always know how. And so advocacy is something huge that I value. But I'm curious, Cass, like, how do you help when your students feel impassioned or emboldened to speak about something? How do you help them do that?
Yeah, I think that you find creative ways to give them a voice. And so I know that when the situation happened with George Floyd, like all of our students knew about it. Absolutely. All our students knew about it. Some of them, watched what happened. Some of them weren't allowed to watch what happened, but nonetheless, they all knew. And so I asked them, I said, what do you guys think we should do as a youth group? Does this affect you guys in some way, some shape or form? What do you guys think we should do? And then one of the students came up with an idea, like, I think we should make a video. And so we ended up making a video that we were able to use all the students sharing affirmations that our bishop spoke over them in the service. And so during a service, our bishop called up every Black student and just declared over every single student, literally so powerful. And so we used those same words once I recorded. I pulled out my phone, recorded the moment, and we used those same words in a video clip of the students empowering and speaking words of affirmation over themselves. I am educated. I'm this. I am this. I am this. I am this. I am this. And I think that was a moment for even me as being over the youth and me being as a youth leader to show them that, hey, we see you, we care about you, we're going to uplift you, and we love you. We love you. We love you. We love you. We love you as well. So just giving them a platform, and it may be different for every youth ministry, but then giving them a platform to know that they're seen and they're heard as well.
Yeah, that's so good. Just hearing you say, we love you, we love you, we love you, we love you. I don't think we can say we love you enough. And the more we say we love you to each other as adults, the more students are going to believe it when we say it to them. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to make that point, because our love and how it's communicated to each other is an example that they are looking at. They're not blind to it. They're not just sitting around doing nothing. They are noticing who we are, what values we're living in, how we follow Jesus, what that looks like. And it's pretty incredible. I watched that video actually, and I just had tears in my eyes. It was so powerful to see students declaring truth over their life and over the lives of their friends. And it was really beautiful. So I'm so glad you did that. And thank you for sharing it. I want to talk to you forever, but I'm sure people don't want to listen to this forever. So we will have another conversation, but we did want to share these things with you, that there are 4 things you can do to help students value race, their own and the race of others. Cass, you're an amazing human being. I'm so glad that I have the privilege of knowing you. We together want to practice being aware. We want to practice affirmation and affirming one another. We want to practice community, and most of all, we want to practice humility every day that we try. Yes. So those are 4 things you can do. Tell us the things that you're doing. We aren't the experts. We're here learning in the trenches right there with you. So thanks for joining us. Cass, thanks again for having a conversation today.
Thank you for having me. Oh my goodness. And thank you for being bold enough to do this. This is where it starts. This is where it starts. So
Mm.
thank you for being a leader. Honestly, an amazing leader in this time as well with conversations. Conversations can move, just move things around. Conversations can be a catalyst. And so I hope that this is just a encouraging just platform for other youth pastors to do the same.
You heard it from Cass, everybody. Conversations can be a catalyst. So we hope that you're having them. We hope that this conversation has encouraged you to have them and maybe helped you feel not so alone if you're already having them. So thanks again for joining us. We love you all. We hope that you're staying safe, that you have everything you need. And if you don't, please reach out to the youth ministry community. If you haven't noticed, we love to love each other. So reach out if you're in a spot and you need help or you just need someone to yell at. We are here for you. Well,
Yeah.
don't yell at us too loud, but we'll be here for you as people, but also as a wider community. For 20 some years, I have known youth ministry to be a place of safety and encouragement and fun and comic relief. So make sure you check in with people and don't get lost on an island somewhere because you're not alone. All right, we love you all. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.